Thank you very much for coming. Apologies to the viewers for the slight delay in starting. I would like to start this session by doing a little round of introductions, if you will.
Me.
This is like HBS cold call.
This is Takumi. I'm a venture capitalist here in Tokyo. My founder investor is the same company from Japan to a global. Yeah, I used to work for Bridge Scaling Ventures, which is the leader Hoffman's fund, and work for private equity in Germany. And I came back to Japan for supporting Japan's ecosystem to be more global as well. Nice to meet you.
I'm Rob Clare. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. My company, Heka Bio, is in licensing great medtech and biotech assets from around the world, buying the commercial rights for Japan, doing the clinical development, regulatory submissions, and commercialization.
Hello, I'm Jeyla, one of the co-founders at illumicellAI. Imperial College alum, worked at McKinsey before starting my first telehealth venture alongside my co-founder, Michel, who's also here.
Thank you. I'm Michael Bielecki. I'm a Swiss lawyer in Tokyo, partner at the Japanese firm of around 50 lawyers. I've been in Japan for 13 years, and I do also preside the Swiss Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Here, I teach at university. I mentioned this just simply because perhaps the perspective of the students is also interesting for this topic. And now, the best at the end, Michel.
Hi everyone, my name is Michel Bielecki. I am a physician by training, one of the co-founders at illumicellAI alongside Jeyla, and also Harvard alumnus, which is how we got involved with Harvard and the iLab, and also why we were kindly invited here by 4K. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for coming. Today's panel is quite interesting because it has many legs. It has the Swiss leg and the American leg and the corporate and the startup and the academic. So I think it can be a very interesting discussion. I have a few questions for you, but feel free to answer or pitch in from your angle of all these aspects. So let's start with the first one was what was the initial motivation? For example, in the case of illumicell, you see collaborations in Japan, and how did you identify who to collaborate with?
I'll be honest, this was quite serendipitous. We were at a New Year's Eve party, and one of the attendees, Jerry Donovan, she's a local corporate lawyer here, heard what Jeyla and I are building in Boston, and she's like, "Oh, I know just the right guy for you." And we met Rob here during dinner, and he wrote us a check during the dinner. Actually, he was first investor into us, and that kind of cascaded multiple other interactions with corporates and investors and VC. You'll add something.
Can I add something? It's just I would like to add another perspective to that. I was not aware of this incident. Beautiful, but I have known Michel for, I say, probably more than 10 years. He was strongly connected with Japan. He studied here at the Keio University, and I think it's also very important from this perspective. He started planting seeds in Japan already long time ago, perhaps not even being aware that he planted seeds already. I mean, he was strongly connected in Japan. So I don't think that it was for him simply coming to Japan and looking for investors. It was somehow being here and having people who liked him, people who knew what he's doing. He was very transparent about what he's doing, why when he's coming. He was always, I mean, he was even flying to birthday parties or weddings of friends here in Japan. I think this is a very important element of the past success of the company. Sorry, Jeyla.
Yeah, totally. And I want to build up on that. That's super important because Michel was here to build some foundations that we further utilized to build our presence. Because in Japan, it's not as easy as knocking on somebody's door and telling them what you do and they're going to love you. It's about getting recommendations from the society. So what Michel had built here helped us eventually to build good recommendations from the society. I mean, Michael, he wrote us a letter of recommendation so that we could go and talk to people here. And yeah, absolutely important. So it was serendipity, but there's a lot more behind that as well.
Very true. And both things are true, that the serendipity nature of events that happen in a startup, it's common no matter where, no matter what industry, no matter what country, startups operate that way. There's never too much forethought planning because that's the nature of startup. And also I heard party twice, and that's the social aspect of things. So it makes perfect sense. But back to the Japan activity part, and to follow up on your comment on having the recommendations and all the connections and all that. What were the biggest cultural or operational challenge that you found working this bridge? Is it Boston or Swiss Japan bridge?
So first of all, lots of parties, yes, and three of us co-founders in Switzerland. We also met at a party. And when we wanted to test our idea whether it's going to work in America, you know, we sent mass emails to lots of American clinics. Nobody responded. And I said, guys, let's pack our bags and fly to New York. We did. We knocked on their doors. We said, we're going to wait here until you talk to us. And that worked. So doctors were actually open because the need was so dire that they were like, okay, we want to talk to you about this. We have 15 minutes, ended up talking for 2 hours. That's how we got our first letters of intent from American clinics. Wanted to try the same thing in Japan. That's never gonna work. So what we had to do, we actually had to spend time here, get those letters from Michael, from others. Rob helped a lot. Rob's connections. Rob has been here for over 30 years. And he trusted us enough to open up that connection so that we were recommended already to go in and to speak to clinics. That's number one. Number two, I think when we prepare pitch decks in America, it's very much like bam, bam, bam. What's the message? What can you give us? Right? In Japan, we try to write as much as possible, cram a lot of information. And we know that whether it's 15 pages or 80 pages, the Japanese are going to read everything. They're going to honor you. Yes, they're not going to pretend they read it. They're actually going to read it. And they will be interested and they will also engage with you on those topics. So I think that's for me the two key differences in operating. People are extremely detail oriented and they actually appreciate the detail here. And maybe the third one is also managing relationships is a bit different. It's a lot about being polite and also being honoring the relationship in many different ways. And especially if you can show it as a foreigner, I think it pleases Japanese a lot. It surprises, but eventually pleases too.
Yeah, from the Japanese perspective, I would love to hear, you know, from.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I know this is a recurrent theme of this partying, but like, I'll give you an example. In Switzerland, we have not met some of our investors, right? They go sometimes to 1 million questions and they write you a check, but we have actually never met them. In the US, typically it's you pitch, they like it, decide to save, next day they wire your money. And maybe you have a lunch meeting, but like you don't really have a personal relationship with them. I think with every single one of our Japanese investors, it starts with a business meeting and it ends up somewhere in izakaya and a bar and build also some kind of personal relationship, or karaoke even. And then you're like, okay, I like you personally too, so I'm going to trust you more. And maybe, yeah, let's get over to the Japanese perspective.
Okay, so Japanese perspective out, like the details and like the few pages, like pitch deck is the kind of thing, but also we really care about accounting-based information. So even if it's early stage company, we like to see 5 years of like the plan. It doesn't need to be super accurate, but it's better to be accurate. And the probability of occurring these events. So we call it gaizensei, and that's like the main question you get asked from the Japanese investors. And another things you may need to watch out is that we tend to be too proud. So you feel like you may get invested, but not necessarily they're that interested in investing into the company. So there are like some cultural differences existing. So I recommend to like have the Japanese kind of supporter if you want to have investment or like a corporate collaboration with a Japanese company. And like understand the language, like they're like meaning behind of what we say and what we like. And if you send a message to investor in Japanese, for instance, that will give kind of great green flag at fast pace. And then also you try to speak some level of Japanese, like say konnichiwa and like introducing yourself in Japanese, that can give like more confidence in investors. So like I think it's really important to have like some local supporter, even although like you don't have any kind of attraction here yet. This kind of commitment, making them like making us feel like more, how to say, relaxed and like interested into to your like project. That's what I feel like. Is there anything else we think about?
Yeah, so I agree. I think, you know, it's going to be difficult for someone coming from another culture to come in and learn all the, learn how to read the body language and learn Japanese perfectly and this kind of thing. But I think, you know, taking time and putting effort into the relationship and being patient and showing appreciation for the Japanese counterparts is really important. You know, we do see a lot of clients' friends coming into Japan, and they expect after you know a week of meetings, oh, we've got this done, and then you know a month passes, another month passes, another month passes, and nothing gets done. There's you know slow follow up of the inside, but nobody really knows what's happening. And then there's disappointment, and people just I think a lot of companies don't make a conscious decision to avoid Japan, but they just it's sort of attrition of their attention, and then they just get you know disappointed and give up. So we see that a lot. By the way, in my world, we talk about the drug lag and loss, and we talk about the device lag and loss, where many great innovations around the world, which are approved and usable in US and Europe, don't make it into Japan fast enough. So why is that? This is a big part of it. It's a misunderstanding of the culture and not having the patience to go through with that relationship building. So I think I agree, 100%. Yeah. So and you know, just to give an idea on timeline, my most recent strategic partnership that I completed it took me exactly 11 months to get done. So this is something that you think I believe actually that the decision was made during the first meeting. But then it doesn't matter if you've met with the CEO. Even if it's CEO to CEO, it's handshake. Everybody knows what we're going to do. It might take 11 months because now it needs to go down to the working level group until the idea percolates and bubbles back up to the board. Then they make the decision. So this is this Japanese decision making.
Yeah, Japanese decision making is quite hectic. So, well, you better to prepare like you better to have like some, I'd say, the time to like spare, and you better to have longer runway if you want to come to Japan. But like you don't need to like go through like whole travel summit only in Japan as well, right? Because for instance, if you like, because I think the listener is like from top universities at this like of this event, so. There are some corporate and or like PhD candidate or like some great talent of Japanese people like at Harvard, MIT, Stanford, ETH, or like everywhere in the world, and they normally have accomplished something in Japan, so which means they have strong connection in Japan, and so if you support them to like thrive in their like this local ecosystem, I'm quite sure they will support you to go to Japan as well. And it's about who introduced you who. So if you get introduced by like people, you get a great connection like super quick. And And because it's super complicated, not many people enter, as you said. It's blue ocean on top of Mount Fuji. So you need to climb the Mount Fuji. But like once you like hiked up, then you're just waiting into the blue ocean. That's what I think about Japan.
Checking, there was actually very nice manual.
Very
if you have-
poetic.
Yeah, I know. I've never seen him like that.
We should write it down. But talking about this manual, I remember something very important that you have mentioned quite recently, where you were moderating a panel of a couple of startups. So Takumi asked them, "Can you explain, each of you, why Japan? Why Japan?" And I thought it was such an important and fundamental question that I think maybe only one of this many startups answered to in a satisfactory way. I think it could have been Brazil, China, Germany, Switzerland, for anybody else. There's only one perhaps who really said why Japan. And I think this is what you, Michel, actually you have the why Japan.
I hear what you're saying. This program, this technology exchange and collaboration hub project, is taking me 2 years to get off the ground, and I'm now only starting to build the trust and connections. So I understand the long term, and I understand the commitment. I've moved to Tokyo. I completely agree. It's completely worth it. To the why Japan, that's the number one question I get asked every single time. And I have a good answer for that, but yeah, why Japan is important to have a clear answer to. Okay, so moving on. Another question I have is, I know that you participate in a number of Japanese programs, KJP and Smart City Kyoto Expo by Japan, etc. So have they helped? Have they shaped? Have they provided opportunities? Are they worth it? Which ones? All of them? What do you think?
Yes, we did a lot of them. I think they did help, especially if you are not as connected. I think they're very helpful in introducing you to the ecosystem, slightly to the culture and the way of doing things. For example, the last thing we had was a grant by Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and they did a whole bunch of research for us. And somebody who works with me in my team, they were supposed to lead that, right? So I started it, I gave it over. And that's a person from San Francisco. They're like, what is happening here? I'm like, just Austin, just be patient. Just you have to say everything many times. You have to write it and be polite and very patient. They will ask it again and again. There might be misunderstandings. So it's your job to clarify. So even for that sort of exercise, if you want to come to Japan, those are, I think, very important, even on operational level. Secondly, they did introduce us to some partners. They've some pharmaceutical partners, political partners, obviously. And third, what is the third thing? I forgot. Michel, you want to keep going?
Yeah, I think it kind of boils down to what the group said earlier about planting the seeds for relationships. It's going to take our company probably another 1.5 years until we submit to the FDA and get approval. And then, potentially entering the Japanese market with a follow-up at the NDA will be facilitated through the FDA process. But even as we did that, we can't just rock up here and hope that, okay, we're here now, let's sell, right? Like building relationships with academic partners, with research institutions, with pharmaceuticals, with distributors, with people like Rob, getting companies here, that takes time. And it's going to facilitate a future market entry for us. I think it reduced the time to actually bring the technology over without having to start from zero. I think that's an important part. And I think if I holistically look at all of those programs we did, I think a better understanding of the Japanese market and the relationships we built are probably the biggest pluses that we have.
Thanks. So a related question. well, not just those programs, but entities like accelerators, government agencies, national organizations, and I include there the Harvard iLab, where I was very pleased to advise you. I remember for a while because we met when I just arrived there, and you were there for a while and remained. The Tech Tokyo project here, but also SwitchNext, TechStarts. So what roles have they played? Because I know there's slightly different programs. What roles have they played, and how would you advise others to leverage those to their advantage?
I think Harvard iLab shaped us. I don't think we would be here where we are if not Harvard iLab. Extremely supportive network. It was a pleasure having you as a mentor as well. Not just you, but also others from different backgrounds and everyone professional in their own way. Seeing how supportive they were, I would have never imagined that they were such tough business people, like the VCs, and I don't know, somebody has their own business, somebody's a part of the VC, and you're an exit founder. So I think Harvard iLab is our number one. SwissNext has helped us a lot with connections in Japan and China and in the United States as well. We don't use them as much in the United States, but SwissNext is basically the innovation embassy of Switzerland, and they're doing an amazing job representing Swiss startups, making sure they're connected to the ecosystem. And in Japan, we've been to every single event every year by SwissNext and the Swiss embassy. And I think they've been extremely helpful when we needed them to. For example, they introduced us to the Science and Technology Forum in Kyoto, which is a very selective event. It's like World Economic Forum for Science and Tech. And we just became the first startup to be part of the forum. And that's thanks to SwissNext and the Swiss Embassy. The third one I want to highlight is Creative Destruction Lab. Like, we were destroyed there. And that destruction ultimately helped us build. They don't take any equity. It is in Canada. We're part of the AI stream. I cannot recommend this program enough. It was extremely helpful. We went in there, super cocky, like, we have this cool startup. And there's basically a panel of 100 experts, judges that destroy you. It's their job to do that. And they're absolutely ruthless. So after my first session, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So gotta go home, gotta really level this up. So and it's competitive, so you don't progress to the second round if you don't complete the first round. So we were glad we were one of the top choices for the final round, and it's all thanks to how tough the mentors were, how tough the program was. At the same time, gave us incredible network. Especially when it came to VCs in Canada and in the United States. Yeah, so those programs are important. I would say even more important to scientists and people with tech background, because they tend to think that business is not important. The most important thing is just to build in your room all day, all night. But I think those programs ease you into how important it is to build relationships, partnerships, financial models, sales plans, all that stuff. So yeah, and it is worth the hype for sure.
And maybe to your second question about advice for other startups, I think is know your industry. Not everybody needs a Y Combinator to succeed. Not everybody's a B2B SaaS company. Not everybody's scalable the same way. And not everybody's going to get the same return or equity to actually give to those accelerators. So really know what you're getting in return before you sign up and get too enthusiastic, because you might end up in a room with B2B SaaS startups and none of the advice that they're getting is in any way relevant to you, right? I think that's something that you have to learn throughout this process.
Thank you very much for saying that, because when I say it, I sound partial because I come from a program, but coming from you, hopefully that advice is for better. By the way, the Science and Technology Forum, I'll be speaking there this year, so looking forward to seeing you there.
See you there, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so on to the next aspect, next question. Are there any specific examples of how illumicell AI adapted the technology or the business model or communication style, any pivot or adjustment, particularly to better fit the needs of Japanese partners or customers, investors, or stakeholders?
Totally. So the product is the same, but the needs are different. So we know that in the United States, you don't have scalability, and we help clinics to scale up. We scale it to doctors' offices. In Japan, it's not exactly the same issue. They have 5 times more clinics than in America. But what happens here is they have special government subsidies that smaller clinics are using to become IVF clinics, but don't necessarily have the same capital. So those are the slight differences. And when you understand them, you can adapt your pitch deck for your partners, for sure. So the market needs obviously very different, and you have to understand that. And you cannot come in with the same pitch because you're just like, yeah, but we already have 2,000 clinics here. We don't need the scale. And second, as I mentioned before, our pitch decks are super intense for the Japanese, lots of letters. We also translate them every time. I think it's a bit disrespectful to just send 20-pager deck and expect people to understand English. So we always translate them. So those are the 2 main things.
Okay. Fair enough. There's a related question, which is from the other side, right? Like, what are the expectations that the Japanese corporates or investors or stakeholders have to work with you, or in general with a US-based startup? And how do those expectations compare to the realities of the collaboration? Because one of the areas where startup corporate collaborations fall, it's in the misalignment of the expectations, not only for a startup, but also for researchers. So, from that side of the table, I'm looking at the rest of you. How do you see those expectations playing out?
No. So, sorry, I was daydreaming a little bit. Expectation misalignment between investors and the company.
Investors, partners, potential customers,
Yeah.
and startups or researchers, particularly in the context of Japan and the United States.
Yeah.
Because probably that's even stronger, at least at the beginning, than it would be in the United States.
Yeah. So I think one thing I noticed is that I think for Japanese strategic partners or investors, the number one thing that they're going to be excited about is the story. Why are you developing what you're developing? What are you solving for? What's the big issue there? Well, Japan has a larger fertility issue than most of the rest of the world, and so this is a really an issue that really resonates. And so to go from there, so I think that in Japan, the solving the fertility issue is the number one thing to do, and that really resonates quite a bit. More so than the story of using sperm as a biomarker for general health, which may be more important in US and Europe. I don't know, I assume so. So really the fertility issue and how is this solved, particularly in a remaining patriarchal society of Japan, where yes, many people are involved in IVF treatment, but is it whose fault is it? Type of issues come in to play, and to be on that journey together and understand what are the real issues for infertility and how can they be solved. I think this is a really one that resonates quite well. So how does that? I think anytime an investor or a strategic partner gets into a relationship, I think that they don't forget the initial impression of the story or the vision, why they got involved in the first place. So they always want the company to live up to that original vision. And they understand that, there's gonna be pivoting and changing, evolving over time, but I think that, really staying to that, the why behind the development is gonna be really important here in Japan. And I believe it may be more important here than elsewhere.
But allow me to follow up on that. The why story, the problem you're solving, is actually the alignment. That's what brings them together. I'm interested in misalignment, like you say, there's an expectation of delivering. How do you manage that? Is it through milestones? Is it an initial agreement? Because that would make sense in cultures where communication is very direct. United States, you sit down and say, okay, milestone 1, 2, 3. You have 3 months to deliver this, 4 months to deliver that, and if not, you're out, you're in, we're in business. But I'm assuming, again, I'm no expert, but I'm assuming that here the alignment must happen at a different level or a different mechanism.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a very good point. It's much more subtle. It's less contractual and it's more about ongoing communication. So we always like, whenever we have an agreement with any company, we like to make sure that there's a natural cadence, regular cadence to the communication. When communication lapses, then doubts arise. And then, from a Japanese company, rather than having an attack from that company, you're more likely to have just disappointment and going quiet. So we're no longer interested in you. We no longer love you. Therefore, we're going to just go quiet because we're just disappointed. You never want to get to that place. So you want to keep the regular communication. I'm always with the strategic partners we have. I'm always saying, look, we have a quarterly meeting now. Do you want to move that to a monthly? There's a reason to do that. But let's make sure that, even if it's short, we're visiting each other, we're understanding each other, what have you done for me? What are new needs that have arisen during this time that we should know about and act on? Just kind of, even if the content of the meetings is sometimes meaningless, but the fact that you had a meeting is very important, and keep notes on that, documented, and make sure that everybody is aware, and the whole team, as I mentioned before, Japan is very much a team-oriented business decision. So the working team is really the most important thing. And you want to make sure that they're going to be delivering good reports up to the upper management and board level. What else? So I think it's just a very simple communication rather than milestones and contracts.
I think in general, talking about the misalignment of the investor and startup or corporate and startup, fast-rated Japanese companies, the Japanese culture is super risk averse. So constant communication is quite important. But also, you need to understand about corporate structures. The people tend to move around the different divisions. So if you're only communicating with one person, you'll be cut off. Yeah, because new person doesn't necessarily have passion for the company, right? And so if you communicate with 2 or 3 people in the fund or company, then you can kind of mitigate the risk, but otherwise it's going to be quite difficult. And also they give an opportunity to them to support you because, for instance, this investment with your hands-on support or putting into the ecosystem, what's the point? It's better to invest in S&P 500. That's more sure about return, risk is way lower. So, if you want to get Japanese money, why Japan? That's kind of important things again. So you kind of need to do something with Japanese ecosystem in Japan or outside of the country. And another misalignment, this is more of the investor's perspective, but exit opportunity. So the thing of Japanese funds or companies that they have really tight or let's say time schedule. We cannot really extend we can do 1 or 2 years, but we cannot extend our fund maturity 5 years or something. So we need to liquidate our position. So when you want to get investment from a Japanese company, actually suggesting the exit opportunity can increase the lot. And you provide like you have kind of like example already, then people will trust you. So it's a question of like how to reducing the risk for risk about people. Yeah. So that's my point. Yeah.
Very excellent points. Thank you very much. I completely see it and agree. But yeah, those are very good points. So another thing that I was wondering about is that there are issues regarding intellectual property, regarding data sharing, regarding regulatory compliance that affect every startup in a regulated space like medical devices. Any particular challenges, any particular tips, any particular aspects of a US-Japan investment collaboration startup market access that you can think of regarding data sharing, regarding IP and regulatory? We're looking straight to the lawyer.
Yeah, just one comment for us. Asked us this question in 2 years, maybe. I think one positive thing potentially is the Japan is under a different classification than the FDA. And after what Jeyla mentioned earlier, Accenture did that market report for us pro bono through the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Turns out that maybe we're actually at a lower classification in Japan than we would have anticipated in the US, which might translate to earlier and faster revenue and entering the market faster. So I guess that's my only comment on this topic here. Happy to give over to the lawyer.
The lawyer has not much to add to that. I think it's I would generally suggest take a look. First of all, use opportunities like what you just explained with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, who can produce you some papers, who can give you a legal opinion or do some studies to tell you where you stand and what regulations are relevant in this context and which are not.
Yeah, I completely agree. The role of advisors, experts, super important, and the resources are out there. They're just difficult to find. I think one of the keys of the Harvard Innovation Labs is having 200 experts in residence where you can choose from in one location. So having access to the resources and a centralized way to access them is key. And that's one of the things that we want to do at Tech Tokyo, is to provide a one place where we can connect many dots. So we're nearing to the last few questions, some of the typical ones. Obviously, one that is always asked is, what is the most valuable lesson learned from the collaboration that will help other startups and corporates considering similar international partnerships?
The one that I'm not sure I was ready for it, but it contradicts my nature a bit. Patience is key, and patience pays off. And I think in very few countries that's true. Sometimes you're going to go fast. People appreciate you being fast, and here it accrues over time. And I think patience is key. And just because somebody is slow doesn't mean they're not interested. And just doing your best at every stage and keeping that as your pledge to that partner until you get to some point, but never dropping them. I think startups, as I say, like beggars can be choosers, and we are beggars. But to be honest, especially as an early stage when we don't have leverage, so you can never drop the ball. You have to have a good reason to drop it. So never show disrespect, and be patient as possible with any collaboration or investors that you have here.
And I think unless you're in B2B SaaS, if you're in tech, if you're in medtech, if you're in any more substantial industry, unless you have 20 years of experience in your belt, and let's be honest, most startup founders don't, then relationship building is key. You'll need to go to events like this. You'll need to get to know the ecosystem. You can't just be stealth and hope for the best once you launch, because then suddenly you'll have a product without any customers.
Good advice. All right, two more questions to go. One is, I feel this question is just like the previous one is the typical one. Like any learning story, you have to, and it's good. This one I feel it's usually not asked enough, and it's important to put on the table. How do you measure success? Success in the sense, I mean, for you obviously, in the sense of a business outcome, but also in the sense of impact. And that question goes for everyone, not just for illumicell, but how do you measure success in your roles in this ecosystem?
As an investor.
In your case as investor, both from the business side and from the impact side.
I mean, business side is like if we can pay back to the LPs somehow, or well, we need to get the like greater return because the risk they are taking is like crazy. But like when you think about, for instance, who are the LP investor of the different venture capital funds, often to be banks and the government. And when you think about it, their method is like create a new like industry from Japan, or like has a created social impact. So definitely social impact is quite an important aspect of the venture capital, like as a business. So when we invest, we have some kind of criteria, like what kind of impact this business will make. And does it really helping people, or is it just only for money making? And so like we have some level of KPIs to like observe. So for instance, like more supporting femtech company, and is it actually helping the female workers, or like the medical condition of the females in the society, and these KPIs will be measured as success or not. And if the company will be successful, it's actually kind of like great for like both social and financial perspective. So that's probably the like not the way to measure, but like if it's working or not, and like if we invest into the good company or not, then like that, I guess.
Thanks. Mine is kind of easy. So we measure ourselves based on how many drugs and devices that we've been able to bring to Japan get approved, and the number of patients that we've been able to treat. So that's cancer and neurodegenerative disease primarily. So that's what we're up to.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about the classic business KPIs because we have them on for now. But I think specifically in Japan, every time we come here, I think the impact that we see, that more events we attend, more people to know, somebody who supports us, like people in this room. I think for us as an early stage startup, wanting to, not based in Japan, but wanting to be part of the Japanese market in the future, that's one of the key impacts. That's one of the key metrics that we see. And every time we see their faces, we're happy. We know that those are genuine supporters, and we know that we can rely on them in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about which perspective should I talk from the lawyer's perspective. I'm seeing the happy client, and the client pays my invoices, perhaps. But if I take the perspective perhaps of the Chamber of Commerce, or my personal perspective being here in Japan, I think a success would be to see the company still existing, still moving forward. The company or the person, I refer now to Michel. I've seen him in Japan 10 years ago during his study time already, running his first startup or second startup, I don't know that he sold after that, and he's still around. I see this as a success. And I see every single startup that joins, let's say, as a member of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce, and they stick around for a couple of years and even longer as a success. So I think it's this kind of continuity, sustainability. That's what I like to see. Of course, I don't see behind the stage. I don't know how it looks financially. I don't know if the LPs are paid. I don't know if the VCs are happy. I don't know that, but seeing the company being around, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think when I started on our first internal meeting with our startup, Jeyla made a new policy for the year. She said to everyone in the year, guys, whatever you do throughout this year, every activity inside the company has to increase the value of the company in some way, right? And I think that's why we keep coming back here, because in some way, whether it's tangible or not, it is increasing the value of it. And that sometimes that's also relationships.
All those make perfect sense. I really love the fact of still being around, sticking around, continue, because that brings sustainability to the ecosystem that allows it to grow. So yeah, those were excellent points. I agree with all of them. So finally, lastly, looking forward, what are the next steps? Particularly for illumicell. The next steps for all of you supporting the ecosystem, the next steps that you are taking or going to take, and the next steps that you would like to take or would like to see happen.
That there's what I wish for and what is realistic, right? I mean, optimally, we'll find a wonderful strategic partner who realizes the potential for their own resources and makes a huge Series A investment, and we'll have a huge exit in a few years. I think that would be really cool.
That sounds like the ending of Pretty Woman.
Realistically, I think leverage the existing relationships we have. I know I sound like a broken plate, and grow them further in order to also create some sort of sustainable presence of our company in Japan.
Well, then, sure, I'll repeat myself. I would like to see them around. I would like to see them around in the next 10, 15, 20 years. I wish you a fantastic exit, and I would like, Michel, that you stay, and Jeyla as well, stay connected with Japan, that you keep planting your seeds and see your trees growing here. And
Unintended.
Unintended, but that's what I would wish as well.
Okay, yeah, whatever Michel said, yeah, it does sound like an ending of Pretty Woman, but we're all dreamers. That's why we're doing this. I told Michel the other day, had I known how difficult this would be, I probably wouldn't throw myself at it. But here we are. I think we have amazing traction in the United States. There's actually clinics now reaching out to us wanting what we're building. So it would be great for Japan specifically to also have a way to plug our prototype in and start collecting Japanese data, because as a side note, for regulatory, even if you're approved anywhere else, the Japanese market needs you to test it on the Japanese population. So that would be amazing as our next step in Japan.
That's great. So next steps, yes, having more people getting into the Japanese ecosystem, regulatory process, clinical process. I think this is a great thing. I've always been concerned with, how do we accelerate the pace at which innovations come to Japan? So this is a wonderful aspect. I want to see also illumicell have an amazing exit. This will be great for everyone, and really more visionary entrepreneurs having amazing exits also in Japan for the benefit of Japanese investors as well is something that I really want to see happen more in Japan. When there's an M&A event or Tokyo Growth Market IPO, I think in many cases the upside is small for the team that's been running the organization. So you see that in Japan, there's somehow a suppression of the percentage of stock options that the company is able to issue. So there's not a lot of new millionaires being minted at a typical Japanese exit. I'd like to see that change because what I believe is that when you have great exits, then these exited founders are going to be the best new startup, new founders, and angel investors as well. I believe that's really going to excite the market here in Japan and really boost the ecosystem.
Well, the dream next step is like having a global company from Japan. Our last global company from Japan is like Sony. Like all the startups who went abroad like really failed, like miserably, unfortunately. And I really wish that, for instance, the Japanese market like it will be accepting more foreigners and like English capability or cultural acceptance, everything. But the reality is like a bit delay, but things are happening, especially after COVID. There are like amazing acceleration program is happening in Japan. Alchemist, Texture, Inception Studio, and like Harvard and everything. And more funds are like starting to invest into foreign entrepreneurs or foreign like startups. And so for me, for the next step will be like how to connecting these dots to create a pillar of the international global-minded people, like investor and entrepreneur, and support like you, Michal, and then making some great success cases. And once we create the cases in Japan, we'll be open to try these challenges. We don't want to become pioneer, but we are good at Kaizen. So the question will be how to make these fast five foreign entrepreneur or Japanese entrepreneur going abroad. And for that case, like, we need to collaborate each other to building a stronger like land of international side of Japanese ecosystem. So that's my next step.
Well, those are wonderful hopes and wonderful next steps. And with that, we're going to close the session here. I want to thank you very much for attending. Thank you, everyone else, for watching. And I'll see you around. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's shake hands.